So, Tony, can you describe what it felt like leading up to the introduction of the ADA bill 34 years ago?
During my staff work, I tried to get my boss to introduce legislation on disability issues. It wouldn't work because we didn't have our basic civil rights.
Mhm.
So I realized what was going on when I became a member. When I campaigned, I talked about my disability when I ran the first time, and I wanted the luxury to be able to do something about it. And so I started working on a ADA, and I worked with the Reagan administration. They were working on one. I didn't know that Grassroots was working on one, but I worked with the Reagan administration. We introduced bill bipartisan and bicameral, meaning House and the Senate. Lowell
Mhm.
Weicker from Connecticut was the Republican in the Senate. We introduced a bill at the end of 86. It was like, I think, I don't know, at the last quarter of 86, the end of the Congress. So in the next Congress, we had to reintroduce it. By then, because I introduced the original one, the grassroots community said, well, we're working on this. So I worked with them, and then we introduced the next bill in April of the next year. And then the whole grassroots committee in the House and the Senate. And it was a long struggle, but I was overjoyed when I knew the grassroots community were doing it. I testified before Senator Ted Kennedy's subcommittee, and basically what my thing was, this is my ministry, my passion to get something done. And I was very open about my suicidal and everything else. And it was so personal, and a great feeling that the room was packed with people with disabilities when I testified. And then the whole process of getting it done. But that's what I went through. It was um, a very rewarding but emotional time, which set up why it became my interest, but also has become my passion and my ministry to make a difference for those of us with disabilities.
How is this year different? Is this possibly another dramatic inflection point, especially in the digital accessibility space?
Yeah, the thing, when I say my passion on ministry, I mean that because
Yeah.
we did the ADA, and then 10 years later, we had to do the ADA Amendments Act to cover epilepsy and a lot of other disabilities that the Supreme Court said weren't covered by the ADA. So we did that. And then we then worked on trying to get federal contractors to hire people with disabilities. I did that with Obama. And then I realized that, sight impaired, hearing impaired, physically impaired community couldn't access the internet. So I then started working on that during the Obama administration as well. But it took us 13 years. And finally, we had, with President Biden, we got an executive order prior to June, by the way, which is important because after June, the incoming president, if it wasn't Biden, could dismiss it. So now it is in, and the incoming president, whoever it might be, cannot dismiss it. So it is now the next chapter in this effort. Now, here, the great thing about this is that with the ADA Amendments Act, the total community came together. They did with ADA, but they stayed together even though some of them were covered. And then on the accessibility issue, 300 different disability organizations joined the deaf and hearing and physically impaired communities to get that done. And so there we are. Now, that's only Title II of
Yeah.
the ADA, which covers state, local, and federal government. And Title III is business. But I think it covers Title III this way. Title II, the Justice Department can enforce it, state, city, and federal government. On Title III, they have to get the same executive order done at some point. However, the companies that are preparing this software, I think, will of course have to develop software for state, local, and federal government. That's a huge market. they're not going to have one accessible product and one inaccessible product. They're going to have one. Now, that means that businesses could only use what they put out, which will be accessible. And then worldwide, those same products will be there. So I think this decision on by Biden is a world impact. It is huge. It is really important. And it brings all of us together at the same level. Are there other things that need to be done in regards to ADA? I'm sure there are. I get very upset at these lawyers who go around and just shop places to find and then tell the shop, if you give me $10,000, I won't file action. But that's something we got to deal with. And there's other issues, I'm sure.
Mhm, mhm. So, have you seen how the impact of what you did in the US has actually triggered worldwide accessibility? And what do you think about opportunities for collaboration between the US and Europe in moving accessibility forward?
Well, interesting. The ADA is now the law of the land in over 70 different countries. It's not exactly what we have, but it's their own interpretation. Why do I think that's important? It's an acknowledgement by each of these countries that accessibility, ADA, disability rights are something they need to pay attention to. And that, I get excited about we've exported something worldwide for people to copy. And so if you go, like I go to Mexico periodically, and they have these big blue wheelchairs as one of our symbols all over the place, meaning that this ramp is accessible or this is acceptable. But if you go all over the world, there in all these 70 different countries, there are symbols of recognition of the rights of people with disabilities. Not as strong as ours, but at least a beginning of an acknowledgement that they have an obligation to those of us with disabilities in their own countries.
That's so wonderful and so impactful. Final question. What message do you want to leave with future disability advocates?
Believe, but pursue. Do not ever give up.